And now to our first conversation. Following reports of the excess crude account dropping about from $35.7 million to $376,000, the ECA savings account retained by the federal government is supposed to be a buffer for times of volatility in the oil market. Well, let's have this discussion now with Mr. Oji Demezwe, CEO of Flame Academy Consulting Limited. Join us right here in the studio. Great to have you.
Always my pleasure, Ladi. Thanks a lot for having me.
So this is the trending matter right now, talking about the excess crude account depletion. Some have said that it's now at a level that some footballers earn weekly. Quite a serious matter. What's the implication of this?
Well, the implication is very grave. It worsens the outlook on the country's ability to meet its foreign exchange obligations. That account is where we are meant to store whatever excess we get, from maybe we budget, to get some amount of dollars from our sale of crude, and then we're able to get much more than what we budget for, maybe because of a price advantage like we're having now during this Ukraine-Russia problem, when oil prices so
about $50 should be going in.
We should be pumping money into the account right now to be a buffer in case the reverse trend happens when oil price goes well below our budget. So we make it up from there. So it's meant to be a kind of savings. All right. So if we are so pressed, so financially pressed that we have to deplete the account to fund our budget, there is a very serious situation with dire consequences. Mind you, the external reserves itself has not been trending up as we would expect at this point. These are two different concepts. The excess crude account, where we save whatever we get from our excess sales, and then the external reserve that generally pictures the balance of trade in the economy. How much we have in excess or in deficit in our international trade transactions. Foreign receipts, less foreign expenditure on import and all of that of goods and services. And external reserves is also a show of strength of a country's ability to meet its short to long-term obligations. How much of import can you do, with your external reserve, assuming you have no means of earning foreign exchange at this point in time? If Nigeria goes into war, a situation where we can't earn dollar, how many months of import can that external reserve cover? It's still very, very low at this point. And to worsen it, where we should be, getting some buffer, through the excess crude account, we also depleted. And over the years, you see the central bank, trying to continuously defend the naira that has remained undefended. A defense that has never worked over the past 6, 7, or even more years. And we still keep doing the same thing over and over and over, expecting it to change. We have been defending the naira since 180 to 200. I remember even in this studio when we had an argument that central banks should better collapse the gap between the parallel market rate and their own defensive rate.
Right.
Then the futures market was then, I remember, estimating that the real value of naira was 250 naira to $1. Nigeria was still claiming about 180. And in this studio, I advise that we should better collapse it to ensure that every uncertainty and speculation surrounding naira would end. People said, "Oh, you are a bad economic advisor. You are a bad, how do I put it?
Yes.
You don't love this economy. How do you want inflation to just, hit over us?" Now, review. Even as this Polongo dance continued, we kept advising, end this party going on. That party is working against this country. And the party has continued over the past more than 7 years. And here we are. If anybody had, suggested to the government, collapse the difference between the parallel market and official rate to, let's say, 250, then the person will appear to be a very crazy person, the hater of this economy. Today, where are we today? The same dollar is selling at over 700
naira. But there's also
and we have continuously depleted our hard-earned foreign exchange in selling this, scarcely earned foreign exchange, to some people who have access to central bank or who can come with the name of the presidency to collect this excess, this scarce resource at 416 or thereabouts, and immediately have the opportunity of selling it at 700.
with
If
the
you were that
round
person,
tripping.
wouldn't you do the same thing?
Well, yeah, it's quite a profitable venture, I must say, and because it's been allowed to actually
It's the most inefficient way to
happen.
allocate, our US dollars.
But looking at this depletion now, what's the modalities to actually withdraw from this account? Like, what's the process? You just going there and just take the money. Federal government just has access to it.
Nigeria is a country that has not been very well rated when it comes to fiscal responsibility. All right, if these accounts have modalities for approvals, through the parliament and the presidential assent and all of that. But in this country, we have a situation where the president is everything. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, we also have a National Assembly that's just a rubber stamp. They have lost their power to check and to balance, governance in this country. And we're just on a railroad, one-way traffic. The Senate is run by a crony of the president. The House of Rep is also run by a crony. And you find where the checks and balances desired in a proper democracy does not happen. So the president and his cohorts can wake up and send a proposal, maybe just cosmetics, and get things running, on their own account.
So these things were actually approved.
Well,
these
of course,
withdrawals.
They are approved, but what are the checks? What are the questions asked? How did we ensure that these withdrawals were meant for the long-term benefit of this country?
And it's for times of oil when there's volatility, in the oil market. And well, we've seen some volatility, in that market, but it's more to the upside.
Yes.
So why are we taking from there?
That's the point I'm making. This is a point reasonable people should be asking a question: why are we taking away from that account instead of depositing into that account? So it tells you there's so much more that's happening to our economy that the eyes cannot see right now. The country is so broke that we're looking for anywhere because let's also say it here that Nigeria is currently finding it very difficult now to access loan, both from bilateral lenders, multilateral lenders, and even commercial lenders. Because Nigeria is becoming more and more of a high-risk borrower, a high-risk debtor. And creditors around the world are getting it, finding it more difficult to lend to us. Why is that? Because we have shown, over the years, we have made the argument, every time Honorable Minister of Finance will tell us, Nigeria's borrowing level is still very healthy, that we have maintained a relatively lower debt to GDP ratio. And in this studio too, we acknowledge that Nigeria has one of the lowest debt to GDP ratio, within Africa, even around the world.
But the federal government
is, what is the capacity of our revenue to sustain our debt service? We raised that issue then when the debt service to revenue ratio was still below 70%. Now we all know what the situation is. It's now above 100%, meaning that technically, if Nigeria is a business, the business is now illiquid, totally illiquid, and also approaching insolvency.
But the issue of not meeting our output quota, that issue is still there. So where we're selling,
these are risks.
Way less than that, and they're also withdrawing for security matters too.
Yeah, Ladi, one thing with this country is that we don't run Nigeria as a business to be a profitable business. So we always keep making excuses. Every business that must survive, that must run a sustainable enterprise over time, must look at every risk, must understand the topology and the whole array of risks that they face in course of their operations. That's what we talk about enterprise risk management. What are the various factors that might make you not achieve your intended objective as an entity, as a nation, as a business? And if we're able to sit down, and we have very strong, well-learned professors, business leaders, economists in this country who can do this. But how are we led as a country? How do our leaders harness all the human resources that we have to enable us to run this country as a profitable venture? Every business must always recognize the factors, internal and external factors that will always impact the activities positively or negatively. What are the factors that may make us achieve our objectives faster than we plan to, or make us stay away, have a very huge variance from our intended objective? That's risk management. And if Nigeria understood, before now, that single dependence or total dependence on oil is a major risk factor for this economy, we will not continue to believe that, we'll continue to borrow, that we'll always pay our debt, the debt to GDP ratio is low. We have not looked at our revenue generating capacity. And the fact that this country has, over the years, continue to neglect non-oil revenue sources in this country.
And
we have failed to structure our internal entities, systems, agencies, and so on that collect revenue for this country. We have failed to manage even the revenue that we collect today. Do we actually see the whole picture, whether from immigration or from customs and all of those bodies?
Yes.
What's the journey between the point of collection to the government coffers?
Are
these systems run efficiently?
Yeah.
Do we have the right people at the right places? And all of that in managing our revenue. Let me assure you that this country earns enough revenue to run our budget. But accountability and corruption is a major issue in the system that we run today.
But we're here now. The account, is depleted to below $400,000. What can we do to get that account back up and running?
Well, talking about what we can do is, one, the president and the commander-in-chief of the Federal Republic should please take some urgent steps to address the insurgency, the militancy in the Niger Delta region. Nigeria still has the capacity to produce enough oil and even be able to meet our OPEC quota. Good enough with Russia's decision or Russia's ban or sanctions that make them not supply their oil. Nigeria has a great opportunity to supply more oil to the world right now. But we have to deal with the issues. The same way we are battling with Boko Haram, terrorists in the north. Let's find a way to deal with the leaders, call the leaders in these oil producing areas to see how we can minimize the stealing, the siphoning, the diversion, and the bumping into the crude oil to resolve that issue. How do we assuage the feelings and the challenges that we face in that region to boost our productivity? Nigeria is facing a very major issue in oil production at this point in time. That has to be dealt with strategically in a way that will give rise to a win-win situation, because those people have their own arguments why we cannot be using their oil to develop Nigeria, and they're living in poverty. How do we deal with that militancy and protect our oil pipelines and so on, and also encourage greater productivity in the IOCs, international oil corporations? They're also not happy the way things are running. How far are we gone with the oil sector revival and all of that? That's a major issue.
Right.
Now, if you address that, then we are very likely going to ramp up our foreign exchange inflow. Number two is, how serious, or when can we ever get serious with the ramping up of non-oil revenue sources? Nigeria has the potential to export solid minerals in this country. But you and I know how these are being explored without accounts being given to the nation in some parts of the northern part of this country. Nigeria has the ability to export a lot of agricultural products beyond cocoa, vegetables, fruits, and so many things that if we pay attention to them, we train people and promote them.
We've been seeing some accretion with non-oil exports.
More than ever that we can grow export, because our currency is weaker and weaker. Japan, looking at Abenomics, may God bless his soul, just died a few weeks ago, refused to allow their currency, the yen, to strengthen against the dollar.
Exactly.
In the push to grow export. Now, we have not had to deliberately hold our currency to the value.
Right.
It's happening on us.
And talking about the currency, at this point, we're seeing global currency struggle at this. We're seeing the euro at parity, with the US dollar. Can we blame that on what we're seeing happening with the naira right now?
Well, naira's own case is totally different. Well, the whole impact, the whole global economic crisis is affecting every country. Even the US is not finding it very funny, because even as their dollar trenches against some currencies, it's not working well for them. It's going to affect their exports, negatively. All right? So it's not going well for everybody. But what is different about Nigeria's case is that even in the midst of the challenge, we are still frittering away our scarce-earned dollars. That's a problem. Ladi, today, people still buy dollar at 416, supposedly. Even though there's evidence, I have enough evidence to show that many genuine business people who are doing well-approved, valid for export or valid for FX transaction businesses who have lined up over the past 3 years. I have a client I'm dealing with in my consultancy business who has about 3 years of backlog of FX demand, genuine demand, approved demand, valid for FX demand. They have not been able to meet in the past 3 years.
Every demand suffers.
As these demands, continue to backlog, the level of uncertainty and speculation continues to increase. Now, let me tell you, people are having to do deals, discuss in rackets on how to obtain this same dollar at the I&E window at some rate above 500, showing you that the 416 is still an ostrich approach to say that our currency is strong, to avoid devaluing our GDP value and all of that, and we keep playing the ostrich. Meanwhile, people are now desperately getting this dollar at 5 something at the same official window. Now, assuming it's even 500, this same dollar, you get it at 500, and you can sell at 700 in the parallel market rate, businesses will be more than tempted to arbitrage on that alone. Lord, let me say it here again, and I hope the central bank is listening. Until and unless we confidently and proactively, close that gap reasonably, below 10% margin.
Below 10%,
margin,
reasonable.
The gap between the government rate, there shouldn't even be a margin. But I'm just saying, because it's a tough situation we're facing,
right,
until we close that gap between the official rate and the private market rate to less than 10 naira, difference, if I thought there must be a difference, we cannot solve this problem.
Right.
It's just an economic, human behavior, economic studies about human behavior as they try to allocate resources. So once you have created a room for bad behavior, the consequences must follow. The central bank over the past years, right from the previous central bank governor, His Excellency, His Royal Majesty, up till now our good friend Emefiele, have continued to do the same thing, and we're not seeing any different result, and we keep doing that same thing.
Well, the emerging economies are struggling right now, with currencies. We're seeing the same thing happen with Zimbabwe.
We are giving that the whole economy, of course, we expect a global recession next year. So it's not well with any economy around the world.
So,
but you must look at the economy specifically.
Yes, countries must do something.
Yeah. Risk management is specific, particularly operational risk. Every operational risk is said to be an idiosyncratic risk, specific to every organization. Nigeria must, beyond looking at the general market-driven risks that all economies face, what are the unique risks that we face in Nigeria that will enable us to solve our problems and not go into insolvency the way we're going? Because this is causing us big issues. We can't borrow right now. And if we're able to issue any bond to borrow, those bonds will be deeply discounted, and the value we get for every issue is much less. And that affects our sustainability. You can imagine the amount of things we've done in terms of infrastructure. But when you look at the cost of that, the cost in the future of this country is not sustainable. Sustainability means that whatever you do today to grow your economy must not stop your future growth.
So much to unpack there, Mr. Ojimleze, but we've run out of time. But
at the end of the day, a short period, but we keep talking
at the end of the day, we emerging economies have to do a lot, at this time. Thank you so much, Mr. Ojimleze, CEO of Flame Academy.
Always my pleasure.
Always great having you. All right.